everyone, welcome back to our channel, This Blended House.
Hey, look,
Alright everyone, welcome back to our channel where we try to focus on life in a blended family. And so if you are in a blended family, you know that there are a lot of hardships that come with that. And we are no strangers to that. Yeah. And one thing that we're really grateful to God for is that in the beginning and early stages of our relationship and marriage and while we were dating, God dropped what we like to call a lot of God fingerprints along the way for us. Yeah. A lot of little things that truly, to this day, still seem miraculous to us.
And some of them are small that only we would really understand, but there's a few that is just really cool. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things we want to talk about today.
Yeah, and today we want to share just one of those stories and one of those examples with you. And the reason we're so grateful that God has built these into our story is because, like I said earlier, blended family life can be really hard. Blended family marriage can be really hard. It's also our experience. Our marriage has been very beautiful, but there are a lot of things that we deal with that a traditional family doesn't have to deal with. And so we like to call a lot of these little miracles, a lot of these God fingerprints along the way in our journey, anchors, because they just are great reminders to us in seasons when things are difficult that God truly is in our relationship and He's in our marriage and He's in this thing that we're trying to do. And so today we just want to share one of those stories with you, and maybe another day we'll do like a video where we share like a bunch of them because there truly are so many. But this is one of my favorites, and it's the story about the home in this blended house.
Yeah, the house that we live in.
So, all right, babe. So this is mostly your story to tell. So why don't you start us off at the very beginning?
Yeah, so, to make a very long story short, I went through my divorce, and my divorce was very hard. It resulted in me paying a very high amount of child support, such that I needed to get rid of largely everything that I owned, and I had to move back into my parents' house. So that occurred. And during that time, I really delved into, I'd grown up in church, but I really delved deeply into my relationship with God. And so one of the things that God told me back in 2016 was, rest in me and rest in my promise. Everything will get better in your 30th year. So in that time, between 2016 to 2020, just press into me. So largely that's what I did.
And 2020 was going to be the year you turned 30.
Yeah, I turned 30 in 2020. At that time in 2020, again, I'm turning 30 in June 1st. So this was in January. I get everything with my kids and my custody completely changes for the better. And I'm not going to go into the details of that because there's a lot of privacy there, but it completely changed. So that wiped out the child support that was killing me. It made it impossible for me to, even with a decent income, qualify for a home.
And at that point, you got full custody of the kids.
For a portion of time, I got full custody, and then there was a working back towards that 50-50, which is what we have now.
For her.
And so between 2016 to 2020, I had tried quite a few times to get out of my parents' house because you're a man with a good career. It's embarrassing to live in your parents' house, go on dates. Oh, I live at home. Like, it sucked. So a few months later, it became, wow, I can buy a house. Okay, well, let me go and try and buy a house. I was like over the moon.
So you were picturing what kind of house?
Like a single story or a very small, at most, like a small 2-story home.
Just like how many bedrooms?
3 bedrooms.
Like
three bedroom, because I had a boy and a girl. So I was looking for a small little 3-bedroom house. So that's what I went out. I put offers in. For whatever reason, I was getting rejected, even though I was putting in great offers. And this was back before the market went nuts. And so my mom came to me, and
because his mom is a realtor.
Yeah, and she's a believer, and she was just like, Dustin, I have this house. Every time I go to it, I think that you need to look at it. I said, I know my mom. I was like, Mom, is it going to be something ridiculous? I'm looking for it. She goes, I'm not going to tell you anything about it. Just go into it with an open mind. So she brings me to this. I was like, we pull up to this house. It's got like double porches. It's 3 stories. I was like, what are you doing? Why are we here? Well, what am I gonna do with a 5-bedroom, 3,500 plus square foot house? I have 2 kids. I'm a dude. How am I gonna keep a house like this on half an acre? What am I gonna do? What? And she goes, okay, fine. She was like, will you at least go in and look at it? I was like, all right, fine. So, because it's fun to look at the house. So I went in and I loved it. Had a lot of little things that I liked.
And the neighborhood.
The neighborhood is so cool. There's like parks and putt courses and they have food trucks all the time. Multiple pools, a lake.
And a roller hockey rink.
Right.
Literally all within like a 3-minute walking distance from the house.
Right.
So when you were coming to look at the house, one of the things I remember you always telling me is it had a very Mayberry.
Yeah, because when you pull into the neighborhood, there's like a statue of a kid with an airplane, like it just, and there's sidewalks. It's hard to explain. It just it reminded me. I grew up watching Andy Griffith Show. It reminded me of Mayberry, and I was like,
has a very southern like charm.
Right. All the houses are built with the southern design, the double porches, so on and so forth. And while technically I could afford it, I was like, 1, this is a lot, and 2,
I don't need it.
I don't need this. I can't keep this. So we left. She was like, all right, fine. So we left. 2 weeks later, I think at that point, I had found a small little house that I really liked, and I put in an offer and been rejected. They went with a different offer. And so my mom goes, Dustin, I really just feel like you need to go back and check that house. Dad's here today. You have the kids, because the first time I didn't have my kids when I came to see it. So I was like, well, it's always fun, so fine, let's go look at it.
So they packed the kids up.
My dad went with us that time, and we went to it. So we're walking around. The kids naturally thought it was awesome. They're running up and down the steps. This is going to be my room. This is going to be this, blah, 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 blah. And I walked out onto the driveway, and I was like, God, why do I feel something? I don't know what it is, but why do I feel something? And I just felt like God said, your kids are going to get healing here by the house. And I was like, what? And so we left, and I was kind of just quiet, and I said, Mom, what would it take to put in an offer on the house? She was like, oh, are you serious? She was so excited. That's just my mom. She was like, yeah, let's put in an offer. So we put the offer in, and at first there was some negotiation that had to happen. But what was really cool was I was like, there's just no and I said, I was praying, and God said, don't worry, they're going to hear your story, and they're going to meet you at the price point you want to go at. I kid you not, I wake up the next morning, I'm talking with my mom on the deck at her house, and she opens up her phone to a text, and they're like, after hearing your story, let's go ahead and just write the offer. Or let's go ahead and write the contract up, that they accept the offer. So from that point on, and here's the kicker. This is the coolest part. Was that what you were about to say?
No, I don't know.
The closing and everything worked out so that I closed on this house on my 30th birthday.
And God had literally spoken to him years before and said, pretty much in essence, everything is going to change
in your 30th
year. Now, mind you, at this point,
I've not met her.
Haven't even met.
Right.
But what's really cool is we did meet 6 days later
after
the
close
closing
of the house.
Because you closed on January 1st,
June 1st. I met her. We
connected on June 6th.
Yeah. And then we went for a walk here. She came to the neighborhood. We went for a walk outside. And
there's so many beautiful trails and lakes. That was the first time like we met in person. Was me coming here and us going for a walk around the neighborhood. And to this day, we think it's so cool. Like we like to take that same
walk that we did.
There's a bench. Walk that we did. There's this bench that we sat at.
She keeps joking I need to like dig it up if we ever move.
Babe,
and in the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night, you need to go out and like dig up that bench. That is our bench. So we when we were like friends, we sat on that bench. When we were dating, we sat on that bench and talked. When I was pregnant, we sat on that bench and talked. When we had our baby, we've taken him out there and talked. That bench was super special. But point being that he closed on this house, not even knowing me, not even knowing that there was going to be a woman with 5 children 6 days later that he would meet coming into his life.
Yeah. And it just
filling up.
And so now this house is filled from top to bottom, from the 3rd floor to the bottom floor. And half the time it feels like we need more room. And But that is the beauty of this, that we do have space. The kids, we have 8 kids, but the house is set up in such a way that, the oldest girls have the 3rd floor,
Yeah.
and you can talk about that.
So some people want to know, like, well, how do you fit 8 kids into your home? And so the home has 5 bedrooms, and there is a 3rd story bedroom that has its own like private bathroom. So
Walk-in
our 2
closet's like a
oldest
little
girls,
suite.
yeah, they're almost 17 and 16. They're Irish twins, in case you're wondering how 2 girls can be 16 at the same time. They share the very 3rd floor room. They have their own bathroom.
Oh yeah, they are 16 right now.
Yeah.
That is that weird period where they're 16. They're both the same age right now.
The oldest
so
will be
funny.
17 next week.
Yeah.
So that's those 2, and then we have our 3 boys. My 2 boys, his son. They share the biggest room in the house.
That isn't the master. The master's
yeah.
the biggest, but this room is very large.
And so the 3 boys fit great in there. We have a bunk bed and then a full-size bed. And then the 2 girls, my girl and his girl, they share another room, and they are almost 11 and 12. And so they're roomies. And then the 4th bedroom is our son Caden's nursery. And then we have the master bedroom. And the beauty of all of this is like the placement of this house in the neighborhood was like made for children, and our kids have just loved living in a neighborhood where they can walk to the roller skating rink, walk to play putt-putt, walk to the pool, walk to parks. And
It's
God,
really cool.
it's just such a cool story of
It's-
God knowing the beginning from the end.
It's the truth of what I always tell people. I went through something really hard, and that is that God simply knows the future. And if you lean into him
And trust him.
and trust him, I did. I mean, 4 years before, God says in your 30th year, everything will change. That's a very easy thing for me to just say. It's much different to believe that that's really going to happen. God makes promises to us, and
it made no sense for him to
Right.
say yes to a house. You were blindly obeying the Lord when it made no sense to buy a huge house with
Yeah.
5 bedrooms.
it wasn't even the money. It was just why. It's a single guy and 2 kids.
He didn't need it,
Yeah.
but God knew that he would need it.
Yeah.
So that is our little God story for today. And I guess what we hope that you glean from that is trust the Lord in the process. Sometimes he asks us to do things that just don't make any sense, but trust that he sees the big picture.
Yeah.
And to this day, we're both so thankful because now the market for a house like this
Is nuts.
is crazy.
Oh, it would have put it out of my
expensive.
budget. It's,
Yeah.
What I could sell this house for is ridiculous. So
3 years later,
Yeah.
we wouldn't have even been able to afford a house like this. So God's timing is so perfect, and just always trust and rest in that.
absolutely.
All right, guys, hopefully we'll have more stories to share with you later. Until then,
Goodbye.
goodbye.
God bless.
God bless. Bye. Later.